Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for non-boxing picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, years ago, Sergio Martinez was an up-and-coming fighter, but he was a little bit older than most. He needed someone who would shepherd his career, right? Give him a chance. Actually look at his game, take an interest in his life, and actually help give him an opportunity, right? Then he runs into Lou DiBella, right? Now, DiBella took a chance on Martinez. Martinez never forgot it. Together, they were able to win the middleweight title. In fact, Martinez, quite frankly, in my opinion, is actually one of the better middleweight champions of, let's say, the last several decades, right? Keep in mind, he beats Kelly Pavlik. He beats Paul Williams when Paul Williams was the most feared man in boxing. He gave Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. his first loss, right? Now, I point this out. Obviously, when Martinez ruled the roost, he got a lot of offers, right? There were a lot of directions he could have gone in. But he knew that he was being treated fairly by a guy who was with him, who had his back, right? Martinez never left Lou DiBella, right? Because he needed a fair shake, he wanted a fair shake, and he got one from Lou DiBella. There are a lot of good folks, people like Lou DiBella, who didn't do a bad job, by the way, in the Rocky movie before this last one, right? Check out that film, one with Antonio Tarver in it. Well, anyway, Lou DiBella, there were a lot of guys like him, right? Guys out there looking for talent. Guys who, when they find the talent, give their best effort to help that guy land big fights. Right? Understand the way life operates. You can respect Mercedes-Benz, right? But maybe your tastes run toward Jaguar, McLaren, Tesla, right? You can view, a Ferrari as a great car, but maybe you're really more comfortable in a Maserati or a BMW, whatever your tastes are, right? And so that's the way it is in boxing. Right? Not everyone wants to have a manager who is managing dozens of other world-class fighters. Sometimes a fighter wants individualized attention. Sometimes a fighter wants a team he knows is out there working hard for him, who he knows he can trust. Right? You don't really know these fighters' financial situations. You think you do. But you don't, right? Most of us haven't read the actual fight contracts, haven't read the actual managerial contracts, haven't read the actual promotional contracts. And just because you're with a big manager or a big promoter doesn't necessarily mean you're getting the biggest fights. I'm convinced there are a lot of fighters out there, maybe even some watching this video, who are with the big manager or are with the big promoter, but who know that they've been passed over for the big fights, right? After all, the big promoter or the big manager can really only handle a certain number of big fights at any moment in time. Now, I just read a truly asinine article, downright foolish piece of journalism, in which Adrien Broner, I guess, has decided, after, taking shots at Kenny Porter and Sean Porter's arrangement, right, after then losing to Sean Porter, right, after having lost to Marcus Maidana, right, after having been passed over as an opponent for Manny Pacquiao, Adrien Broner apparently now believes that he is really the fountain of wisdom for the sport of boxing, right? Without any evidence that he has any knowledge whatsoever of any other fighter's managerial contract, he's decided to take shots on Andre Ward. You remember Andre Ward. He is, of course, one of the best fighters in the sport pound for pound, right? Olympic gold medalist, unbeaten fighter, right? Many people are buzzing right now because Andre Ward is entering the light heavyweight division. People want him to fight Kovalev, right? Andre Ward is going to be fighting a bunch of guys. At light heavyweight, a lot of people are excited, right? Well, Adrien Broner, of course, is lamenting the fact that Andre Ward isn't like him, right? Isn't signed with Al Haymon. Now, this video isn't to disparage Al Haymon in any way, shape, or form, right? Longtime subscribers here know that I love fights on free TV. I believe that's where they belong. I don't know what boxing is doing with a different business model than, let's say, football, right? To me, a successful, promotion is one where a maximum number of fans get to know who the fighter is and see the fighter, right? I want big fights on network TV. I applaud Al Haymon for that. But people need to understand that Andre Ward is doing spectacularly well. Spectacularly well. Understand that boxing is a lot like music, right? Think about the big names in boxing, right? Al Haymon, music background. Jay-Z, music background. James Prince, music background. Now think about it. Andre Ward's manager is James Prince. You just saw a heavyweight title fight where Tyson Fury had to travel to a different country, had to leave the United Kingdom to fight Vladimir Klitschko, right? Made sense. Klitschko's the champ. Klitschko gets to fight where he wants, right? Just understand that Andre Ward's manager, James Prince, for another client of his, Brian Jennings, right, somehow convinced Vladimir Klitschko to cross the Atlantic. It was Klitschko who came to New York City to fight Brian Jennings. Right? Think about it. Think about the opportunity too. Right? Brian Jennings' team was able to give Brian Jennings a shot at the heavyweight title against really the fighter most of us consider to be, at that time, the consensus heavyweight champion. Let's face it, when you think heavyweight champion, right, you're thinking of the Klitschko line, right? Now it's Tyson Fury because Fury beat Klitschko, right? Just understand that Andre Ward's team is so adept that they've been involved in some of the biggest fights happening in some of the biggest venues in boxing, right? Andre Ward has had, as you can imagine, a lot of offers, right? Andre Ward is with his team. Understand, too, he just signed with Jay-Z's boxing group. You know them. They also represent Miguel Cotto, right? And so please, I hope people understand that whatever the folklore is, whatever you think you know about boxers' contracts, you really don't until you actually read the contracts themselves, right? Andre Ward is helping build Jay-Z's empire, right? His managers have engineered some great fights. They've engineered a great return for him. Great return. This idea that everyone is better off shopping at Walmart or Sears or the big department store or with the big manager doesn't reflect reality. You have a lot of fighters out there right now, a lot of fighters who've had long-term relationships with their boxing managers and who sleep well at night because they know all of the money is accounted for. When there's a negotiation, their manager has their back. The manager is getting the best that the manager can get. Let's turn back the clock to an earlier generation. Recently, a guy named Mike Trainer died. Big loss for boxing. He was the guy who had Sugar Ray Leonard as a client. Right? Now, you might not have heard about this guy. Ray Leonard believed in him. Trainer got Ray Leonard top dollar. If you go back to the 1980s, you're going to realize that Leonard took several years off. Didn't fight that often. Actually had a detached retina for part of the decade. Didn't fight as often as people think. Was out of the ring for literally years before he fought Marvin Hagler. Years! When you think back to the 1980s, when you think back to big fights, right, Ray Leonard's name is going to be in more than one of them. Leonard Hearns, right? Leonard Duran, Duran Leonard, Leonard Hagler, right? So just understand, Andre Ward is doing quite well, whether Adrien Broner thinks so or not, right? Maybe Adrien would have preferred if Andre went around trying to call himself someone's little brother. Maybe Broner would have preferred, if Andre had run into Marcus Maidana unprepared, right? Or maybe if Andre would have, fought, Sean Porter unprepared, right? Please, I hope Broner takes a moment to ask himself why he thinks he knows so much about the boxing contracts of other people, right? Don't confuse a guy recovering from injury, a guy taking time off, a guy, having some, legal issues with a former promoter, moving on to a new promotional group, who's still unbeaten, who's still someone fight fans want to see, with someone who's struggling in the sport. That's just downright ridiculous. I get the feeling Adrien Broner in the 1980s would have looked at Ray Leonard and would have said, hey, Ray's out of the ring. Ray's not doing it the right way. Right? Let me close by saying this. Do you remember that scene involving Broner in that movie Creed? I don't. Andre Ward, in addition to being, of course, an analyst on premium cable stations like HBO, right? Of course, his management group has also given him an opportunity to act in movies, right? I hope fight fans see the whole picture. When a fighter is unbeaten, when he's one of the best pound for pound, when he's getting promotional opportunities, when he has a managerial group that's able to get guys like Vladimir Klitschko, you remember him, to cross the Atlantic for a fight, to leave Europe for a heavyweight title fight. Maybe that guy is getting great management, right? As I said earlier, you can respect Mercedes, but choose to drive a Tesla. That doesn't mean you don't have a great taste in automobiles. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me say, too, Broner's a very talented fighter. I'm only trying to point out that the folklore out there, where people think that they know what's in a fighter's contract, right? That folklore is just off base and off target. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.